You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your Security Plus certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Security governance can be thought of as the system of policies, roles, and processes that direct and control an organization's security posture, where day-to-day security operations respond to incidents and patch vulnerabilities. Governance defines the rules, accountability structures, and oversight that shape how security is practiced across the enterprise. Governance provides the framework that ensures security is not just a set of technical activities, but an intentional program aligned with business needs. It answers key questions. Who decides the acceptable level of risk? Who owns policies? How are exceptions handled? For learners, it helps to picture governance like the board of directors for a company. They do not run the business directly, but set the direction, rules, and accountability that managers must follow. Security governance is the same. It does not configure firewalls, but it dictates who owns those firewalls, what policies guide them, and how their effectiveness is measured. The objectives of governance can be summarized into three broad categories: accountability, alignment, and risk enablement. First, governance ensures accountability by making clear who is responsible for security outcomes at every level, from executives to system administrators. Second, it aligns security to organizational strategy, so that controls are not implemented in isolation but support business priorities, such as entering new markets or ensuring customer trust. Third, governance enables informed risk-taking. Instead of eliminating risk entirely, which is impossible, governance ensures leaders know which risks are accepted, which are mitigated, and which are avoided. This clarity allows business units to operate confidently within defined boundaries. For learners, think of this like traffic laws. The goal is not to eliminate driving risks entirely, but to set rules and accountability structures so that risks are known, managed, and reduced to acceptable levels. Governance rests on several core pillars: policy, risk management, compliance, oversight forums, and performance measurement. Policies codify expectations, defining what is allowed, required, or prohibited. Risk management identifies, assesses, and prioritizes threats that could harm the organization. Compliance ensures alignment with legal, regulatory, and industry standards. Oversight forums such as committees or councils provide decision-making structures and enforce accountability. Performance measurement tracks progress through metrics, dashboards, and audits. Together, these pillars transform governance from abstract ideas into actionable systems. For learners, think of these pillars as the supports of a bridge. Without all five, the structure becomes unstable. Policies define direction, risk defines priorities, compliance validates obligations, forums enforce decisions, and measurement ensures progress is real. Governance is strongest when all pillars are consistently reinforced and reviewed. Governance also defines clear roles across multiple layers of the organization. At the top are board-level sponsors who ensure security receives visibility and resourcing at the highest levels. Executive owners, such as a Chief Information Security Officer (CISO), translate strategy into program initiatives and manage accountability. Program leads manage security domains like vulnerability management, awareness, or incident response. Finally, control owners, system administrators, application managers, or business process owners execute the policies and controls in their areas. Each level must know their responsibilities and be empowered to act. For learners, think of this like a theater production. Board sponsors are the producers funding the play. Executives are the directors setting the vision. Program leads are stage managers ensuring things run on time, and control owners are the actors delivering the performance. Governance ensures all roles are clear and aligned to the same script. It is essential to distinguish between governance and management. Governance is about direction, setting policies, establishing accountability, and making strategic decisions. Management, by contrast, is execution, running operations, deploying controls, and monitoring systems. Governance defines what and why, while management handles how and when. For example, governance may decide that all sensitive data must be encrypted and assign accountability to IT. Management then selects encryption tools, configures them, and ensures deployment. For learners, think of governance as lawmakers writing regulations and management as agencies enforcing and implementing them. Both functions must exist, but confusing them leads to gaps, either lofty policies without implementation or busy operations without strategic alignment. Governance produces artifacts that give it structure and accountability. These include security charters that define the program's mission and scope, policies that codify rules, risk registers that capture and track enterprise risks, and management reports that summarize progress and findings. Each artifact provides evidence of governance in action and ensures transparency. Without artifacts, governance becomes informal and unenforceable. For learners, think of governance artifacts like the paperwork of a democracy, constitutions, laws, records, and reports. They provide continuity, accountability, and transparency across leadership transitions and operational changes. Artifacts anchor governance, proving that security decisions are not arbitrary but documented, reviewed, and repeatable. One of governance's most powerful functions is setting risk appetite and acceptance criteria for business units. Executives define how much risk the organization is willing to tolerate, which then informs controls, monitoring, and investments. For example, leadership may decide that no unpatched critical vulnerabilities in internet-facing systems are acceptable, requiring strict patch timelines. Conversely, they may tolerate some medium-level vulnerabilities on internal test systems. Governance sets these boundaries, ensuring consistency across departments. For learners, this is like a family budget. Parents decide what expenses are acceptable and what risks are tolerable, such as choosing high-deductible insurance. Governance risk appetite statements serve the same function, ensuring the organization spends resources where risks matter most and accepts others only knowingly. Escalation channels and decision rights are also defined by governance. When a policy exception is requested, such as a legacy system that cannot meet password standards, governance structures dictate who can approve, under what conditions, and how compensating controls are applied. Similarly, during major incidents, escalation channels define how information flows and who has authority to make high-stakes decisions. Without clear channels, confusion reigns and response is delayed. For learners, imagine an emergency response team. Firefighters know who calls the shots on site, who informs the mayor, and who communicates with the public. Security governance ensures the same clarity in digital crises, enabling quick, confident action. Governance also enables cross-functional coordination, bridging silos like legal, HR, and procurement. Legal ensures policies comply with laws and contracts. HR integrates governance into employee onboarding, training, and disciplinary processes. Procurement enforces vendor requirements and contract clauses that align with security objectives. Without governance, each department may work in isolation, creating inconsistencies or blind spots. For learners, think of governance as a conductor of an orchestra. Legal, HR, IT, and business units each play instruments, but governance ensures they follow the same sheet music. This cross-functional coordination transforms isolated efforts into harmonized enterprise risk management. Success metrics for governance measure whether it is truly working. Examples include policy adoption rates. Are employees following the rules? Risk trend improvements. Are exposures declining over time? Audit closure rates. Are findings remediated within agreed timelines? These metrics provide feedback loops to validate governance effectiveness and guide adjustments. For learners, this is like fitness tracking. A training plan only matters if metrics like weight, endurance, or heart rate improve. Similarly, governance requires measurable outcomes, ensuring it is not symbolic but impactful. Metrics translate lofty goals into tangible proof of success or areas needing attention. Periodic review cycles keep governance artifacts current with business changes. Policies, charters, and risk registers must be reviewed annually or after major business shifts like mergers, acquisitions, or new regulations. Reviews ensure governance remains aligned with reality. Without them, organizations may enforce outdated policies that no longer match current risks or technologies. For learners, think of this like updating navigation maps. Roads and traffic patterns change, so maps must be refreshed to remain useful. Governance artifacts serve the same function: dynamic tools that must evolve with the business. A practical exercise for learners is to draft a one-page governance map. This map should list decision authorities for policy approvals, risk acceptance, and incident escalation. It should identify who has authority at the board level, executive level, and operational level, and specify what each group can decide. For example, policy approval may rest with a steering committee, risk acceptance with business executives, and incident escalation authority with the CISO. This simple artifact provides clarity across the organization, reducing confusion during day-to-day operations and crises. For learners, it is like a family emergency plan that defines who calls 911, who checks the exits, and who meets outside. Governance maps make authority clear, reducing delays and ensuring accountability. A common way to formalize governance is through a security steering committee. This body typically includes senior executives such as the CISO, CIO, risk officers, and business unit leaders. Membership may also extend to legal, HR, and compliance representatives. The committee meets on a defined cadence, often quarterly, and operates under a charter that spells out its authorities, approving policies, setting priorities, and adjudicating risk acceptance requests. The steering committee ensures security has enterprise-level visibility and decision-making power rather than being siloed within IT. For learners, think of this as a corporate boardroom. Decisions are debated, risks are weighed, and votes are taken. The security steering committee functions the same way, ensuring strategic alignment and accountability across all stakeholders. Boards of directors also require structured security briefings, though their needs differ from operational committees. Boards want concise updates focused on risk, not raw technical detail. Effective governance ensures leaders receive metrics tied to enterprise resilience, such as changes in risk exposure, compliance gaps, or notable incident trends. Briefings must be risk-focused and business-relevant. For example, explaining how ransomware preparedness supports revenue continuity. Without clear, business-aligned reporting, boards may either overreact to noise or underfund critical controls. For learners, think of this like financial reporting. Shareholders don't want every receipt. They want consolidated profit and loss summaries. Boards expect the same. Security information boiled down into business language that allows them to fulfill oversight responsibilities effectively. Policy exception processes are another cornerstone of governance. No set of policies can anticipate every scenario, and rigid enforcement can backfire if business needs demand flexibility. Governance frameworks define how exceptions are requested, who can approve them, and what compensating controls must be in place. For example, a legacy system unable to support modern password requirements might be granted a temporary exception if placed behind additional monitoring. Documenting exceptions ensures transparency, prevents hidden risks, and provides accountability. For learners, imagine a traffic law that requires cars to stop at intersections, but emergency vehicles have exceptions with sirens and flashing lights. The rule still applies broadly, but governance defines when and how exceptions are allowed safely. Strong governance also requires alignment with enterprise risk management, (ERM). Security cannot operate in isolation. Its risk decisions must be integrated with financial, operational, and strategic risks across the enterprise. This ensures risks are not traded off in silos. For instance, a decision to delay patching a system must be considered alongside business continuity risks and financial exposures. Aligning governance with ERM means security is embedded in the same risk vocabulary and oversight processes as the rest of the organization. For learners, this is like weaving one thread into a larger fabric. Security cannot be a patch stitched on top. It must be part of the same weave that connects business, finance, and operations into a unified view of risk. Performance reporting ensures that governance remains a living process rather than a paper exercise. Governance bodies need consistent reports on policy adoption, incident response performance, compliance status, and risk trend metrics. These reports should visualize risk in ways stakeholders understand, heat maps for risk concentration, dashboards for remediation timelines, and scorecards for compliance. Reports must also highlight when escalation is required. For example, when risk thresholds set by governance are breached. For learners, think of this like medical checkups. Doctors don't just record numbers, they interpret trends and decide whether further action is needed. Governance reports play the same role, showing whether the security program is healthy and when interventions are required. Compliance assurance is another critical governance activity. This involves mapping organizational controls to regulatory and contractual obligations, then tracking evidence to prove compliance. Assurance may require internal attestations, external audits, or automated evidence collection systems. Governance ensures compliance is not reactive, scrambling during audits, but proactive, with continuous evidence gathering and centralized control mapping. For learners, think of this like tax preparation. Instead of waiting until filing day, governance ensures receipts and records are collected continuously, reducing stress and risk of penalties. Compliance assurance, when governed well, becomes an ongoing process that prevents surprises and strengthens credibility with regulators and customers. Major business changes also require governance involvement. Mergers and acquisitions, entering new markets, or shifts in regulatory landscapes all create new risks that governance must review. For example, acquiring a company may introduce inherited vulnerabilities or compliance obligations. Governance forums evaluate these changes, define integration requirements, and adjust program priorities. Without governance, changes occur without security oversight, creating blind spots. For learners, think of this like city planning. When new neighborhoods are added, governance ensures infrastructure like roads, utilities, and emergency services expand accordingly. Security governance ensures business changes are accompanied by risk assessments, new policies, and program updates to maintain alignment. Independence and objectivity are essential in governance validation. Internal audit teams and sometimes external reviewers provide unbiased assessments of governance effectiveness. They evaluate whether policies are followed, whether committees function as intended, and whether reporting is accurate. Without independence, governance risks becoming self-congratulatory, blind to its weaknesses. Objective reviews bring credibility and transparency, strengthening trust with regulators and stakeholders. For learners, think of this like referees in a game. Coaches and players may think they are following rules, but independent referees confirm compliance. Security governance requires the same outside validation to ensure its processes remain fair, effective, and trustworthy. Governance participants also require training to be effective. Board members, executives, and committee participants may not be technical experts, but they need enough security and risk literacy to make informed decisions. Training should cover basic security concepts, risk trade-offs, and the implications of common threats like ransomware or insider misuse. Without this, governance bodies may struggle to evaluate decisions or may focus on the wrong issues. For learners, think of this like juries in a courtroom. They are not lawyers, but they receive orientation to understand their responsibilities and the legal framework. Governance training ensures participants know the fundamentals, enabling meaningful contributions to security oversight. Governance outcomes must be embedded into operational KPIs and even incentives. If governance sets policies but managers are not measured on their enforcement, adoption will lag. By tying security outcomes, such as policy compliance rates, reduced incidents, or improved audit closure times, to performance metrics, organizations drive real accountability. Some organizations even tie bonuses or performance reviews to security KPIs, ensuring leaders have a stake in governance success. For learners, think of this like classroom grading. If attendance policies exist but aren't counted toward grades, students may ignore them. Embedding governance into KPIs makes adoption practical, incentivized, and measurable across the organization. Periodic governance health checks close the loop by identifying gaps and capacity constraints. These checks assess whether committees are functioning, policies are current, reporting is meaningful, and stakeholders remain engaged. Health checks may also identify resource shortages, such as insufficient audit staff or overworked program managers. Without periodic reflection, governance stagnates and loses relevance. For learners, think of this like annual car inspections. Even if the car appears fine, inspections catch wear and tear before failures occur. Governance health checks ensure the system of oversight remains strong, adaptive, and credible. Ultimately, strong governance makes security decisions transparent, auditable, and aligned with business priorities. Governance structures define committees, reporting, exception processes, and risk thresholds. They provide oversight during major changes, validate compliance, and embed accountability into KPIs. More importantly, they ensure decisions are documented and transparent, so stakeholders trust the process even when tough trade-offs are made. For learners, the lesson is simple. Governance is not about creating red tape, but about enabling consistent, informed, and business-aligned decisions. With clear committees, strong reporting, and regular reviews, governance transforms security from a reactive technical function into a core component of enterprise leadership. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.